Good evening, friends, family, and thank you for coming to another evening with Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities. And tonight we have another special guest, another gem in our community. And this is really special because this is another bookstore. And we've been big proponents of bookstores, especially black-owned bookstores here in Chicago. And when we started this podcast a couple of years ago, there were only two black bookstores left out of 22 here in the Chicago area. And so now we have increased to five. And one of them tonight is here, and that's Verlean at the Book Joint. So how you doing, Verlean?
I'm great and glad to be here. How are you today?
I'm doing just wonderful, and I'm that you are here. So we're going to be talking to Verlean about her bookstore that is situated in Chicago. I mean, Chicago is rocking as far as I'm concerned. So as you know, we are a nonprofit organization, and we started this organization out of a desire to make some changes in our community. And that's what everybody needs to do. Everyone can do their part. I think we're often looking for a leader or somebody to tell us what to do. But we have the power within us to make the changes that need to happen in our community. And so we started this organization in an effort to help circulate dollars in our community because we had so many businesses in the Black community who were profiting and have not been giving back. You know, and so I was growing up here in Chicago. We had a lot of we had a lot of black businesses, period. And when you spend money with small businesses in your community, that dollar is going to circulate. And you're going to more than likely hire people from the community. You're going to more than likely support causes in the community. There are some businesses that have community benefits agreements, and I think like we're going to ask Verlean to talk a little bit about. She's mentoring some young people, in the community, and then small businesses offer other businesses to provide their items and have entrepreneurial experiences, within their community, which I think Verlean is doing some of that too. And also, we're serving as role models for our children. Our children are watching us and they're looking at us and they're seeing what we're doing and they're seeing what we're not doing. And they're looking at other people and they're looking at what they're doing and what they're not doing. And we need to be about the business of owning business and supporting Black businesses. And so that's what Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities is all about. Our bookstore of the month is the Underground Bookstore, which is located at 1727 East 87th Street. Brother Yoel, who's very well known in the community, has been over there for about 30 years and still hanging strong. And he's our bookstore of the month. And our book of the month is Finding Me by Viola Davis, which was selected by Brother Yoel. So all you have to do is subscribe to rrgbc.org and you become eligible to win our book of the month. There's no catch other than to subscribe. We purchase the book from the bookstore and we pay for the mailing of the book directly to you. And why? Because we think it's very important that we start reading. Why we have so many people fighting on so many fronts. It all starts with the mind, and what we are thinking and what that is based on, our knowledge. And so that's why we really make a big deal out of the bookstore. So we do want you to continue to support all of our bookstores. And then there's the Southside Community Federal Credit Union that is on 55th and Garfield in the shopping mall, all the way at the end of the mall. and they've been there for over 24 years, and they evolved just like we did out of a need and desire to serve the community, because Black people couldn't get loans, and many Black people still have problems getting loans. And so they do a lot of financial literacy training over there. They care about our community, but we have to support them. So please support Southside Community Federal Credit Union. So let's get started with our interview with Verlean. All right. And Verlean has a bookstore, and it's called The Book Joint. Am I saying that
Yes,
correctly?
you
Okay.
are. Yes.
All right, Verlean. So where are you located?
So I'm located in the Bronzeville area in Boxville. So Boxville is a retail community, um, actually made of shipping containers at
Uh-huh.
330 East 51st Street. So we're right under the green line. And sometimes people just drive by and they don't know what's there, but you have to stop by because there is a plethora of different stores for you to check out. My bookstore, there are several different restaurants. There's
Mm-hmm.
a plant shop. There's also a running store. They sell the running shoes and all the equipment you need. And
Mm-hmm.
also there's a store there that sells candles and handmade products like
Mm-hmm.
jams and soaps and things like that. And
Okay.
every one of us is Black owned.
Wow. And I think I went around the rear end and saw t-shirts and
Yes.
some kind of computer. I wasn't sure because at the time when I came by, they weren't open. I was just kind of looking in the window. But it's
So
a
that's
computer business, right?
well, it's not a computer business. I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's
But
all
what
right.
they do is they make t-shirts and different promotional products, and all of that
Mhm.
equipment is there. So you can actually, like, say you come in and you want a shirt that says something, they can do it right there for you on the spot. And that's
Wow.
called the work, and that's the work spot.
Okay, that is awesome. It's so cute. Your store is so cute. It's a blue, like you say, a blue container box, and you have books in there. Now, how did this box, these box stores come about?
So that was a joint partnership between Urban Juncture and Bernard. And Bernard's last name is escaping me at the moment.
Okay,
But this was an idea that they birthed in 2018 for the
okay,
to build up the community. And that's how they got everything started.
okay. So of course, that's like a step be brick and mortar. I would assume, the cost factor is less. Yes,
So yeah.
the cost of trying to have a box store.
Oh, absolutely. So, like, part of the program with us being in Boxville is we're also a part of an
Hmm.
incubator program. And we
Okay,
actually, the SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Council, they actually have an office on 51st and Prairie in the build in
okay,
our incubator.
okay.
So we're given all sorts of mentorship, including marketing, grants,
Hmm.
and anything small business related. And so, like you said, also the rent is a lot cheaper. So it's this,
Okay,
so we can go ahead and get our feet wet and and just see if this business is going to work for us and just get
okay,
us that confidence to get started.
okay, okay. So they help you with your business plan and
Mhm.
all of that. They help you with all of that.
Yes,
So you come up with an idea and they help you do the fruition of it with the box stores. Well, I think
absolutely.
it's a wonderful idea, and kudos to those people that are, came up with this idea and are supporting you. And, and I see young people and I see young Black people in business. And
Yes.
so it's a wonderful thing to see. So please, everybody, check this out. Um, Now, what inspired you to start a bookstore?
I have always been an avid reader. I have
Mhm.
always loved books, which is funny because I'm an accountant by trade, but I love books. And my mom said, she said I started reading when I was 3 years old. And I mean, as far back as I can remember, I've always had a book in my hand, and it's always been a dream because once I discovered that there were books written by people that look like me and were
Mhm.
about people like me, it just opened up this whole world. And I just wanted to share that with my community, with everyone I knew, and especially our youth, because our youth, with so many things going on in Chicago and just going
Mhm.
on nationwide, our kids need something positive and something to be proud of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know one of the things that I can say is an experience with reading is like reading can take you places. You know,
Mhm.
it can take you to other parts of the world, depending on the author and what they write and how they write, the language that they use. um and so it can be like watching a movie, but it's more detailed,
Mhm.
and you're more a part of it. And I know, when we ask you to write a little summary um about yourself, you mentioned that you started reading because it enabled you to get away from some of the realities of what was
Mhm.
going on around you. And I know one of our authors, Pierre Jackson, who graduated from CVS High School, he started writing poetry.
Mhm.
And he said that's what helped him to go through his transition in growing up, and how he helped him to deal with what was going on around him. So, can you talk about that a little bit in terms of how the reading, helped you to deal with the realities of what was going on around you?
So, some of my childhood, it was a bit hard, it was a bit difficult. So reading was like an escape for me. So if I wanted to get my mind off of what I felt were stressors as I was coming up, I could open that book and I could just fall into someone else's world and
Mm-hmm.
everything they were going, everything that was going on for them, everything that they were experiencing, where they went, even where they ate. And I mean, when I tell you, my imagination was just so vivid that I
Mm-hmm.
would be there in that book with them. I used to
Absolutely.
drive
Absolutely.
my mother nuts because she would be talking to me and I wouldn't hear a word she was saying because I was in another world.
He was in another
And it just
world.
made, yeah, and it makes things, sometimes it makes things easier because sometimes things outside are so heavy. You just
Mm-hmm.
need that escape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was a little girl, they used to have a lot of books about people eating porridge, the little stories, little for the little kids, and they would be eating porridge, and you would have these characters. And I always liked hot cereal, oatmeal and cream of wheat.
Mhm.
And I would see that porridge, and I could smell it, and I would get hungry, just reading. And so, yeah, reading can be an escape, you know
Mhm.
for a lot of people. And like I said, it can take you places, and it's
Mhm.
just a wonderful experience. And that's one of the reasons, another reason we really support reading, because it can really be help healing, serve as a form of healing for a lot
Mhm.
of people. So, what were some of your favorite reads?
Oh my goodness. There are so many. And let me think.
Let's say starting
One book.
out when you were a little girl.
Oh, when I was a little girl.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I read so many things that I was probably not supposed to. But one book that I read when I was younger that like stuck with me forever, and it was called The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And there was actually a movie made off of it years later. But when I tell you that book was just something that I got into that book. I was living their life with them. I could just see myself at the parties they were at and everything that was going on. Another book I read when I was really young was The Color Purple.
Now, how old
Yeah.
were you when you read The Color Purple?
Oh my gosh. I was probably 10. But
Okay.
when I was 10 and I was being tested in school, like when you would take, I think they were the Iowa test back then.
Uh-huh.
I was scoring like a 12.9 in reading. So it was just like
Okay.
that was the highest score you could get, and I was 10 years old.
Okay.
So I mean, I read The Color Purple, loved it. To me, the thicker the book, the better. So
Okay.
that's how I operated. So The Color
Okay.
Purple was a great one. The Women of Brewster's Place was another great one I read. And I mean, I was really young reading these books, but to
Okay.
me, I was just in these people's lives and it was just great. And then I mean, just the imagery, I could just imagine that I was right there with them sitting at the table when everything was going on.
Okay. Okay. Because these books were about Black women
Hmm.
and many of the challenges, that Black women have faced. I
Hmm.
know Brewster's Place and definitely The Color Purple.
Right.
Not sure about, what was that, Outsiders? You
And
said?
that was not by that wasn't about black people per se, but that was one of my
Okay.
earlier reads. So that was just something I read everything.
Okay. Okay. And being a young Black woman and reading books about Black women, um, I'm sure that was a teaching point for you.
Absolutely. I mean, I could draw strength from some of these women when I was reading the things that they dealt with and they went through. It gave me that strength like, okay, they can push through this. I could push through this too. I'm good
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it gave me more of an awareness because sometimes we can be judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And we're on the outside looking in. We don't know what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in these people's world. And then just reading those books and reading what these women were thinking and what was going on, it made me more aware of, okay, you never know what somebody is going through and you never know what's happening. So that it just opened my eyes to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And obviously, with those women, especially the last couple of books that you mentioned, being Black, it was something that you could relate to because we do live in a dominant white society, and
Hmm.
when you turn on the television, it's different from in my generation where there were definitely fewer white Black images
Hmm.
on the television and in the media. We do have more, but it's still, a dominant white society that we're looking at. So to be able to read about another Black person and the whole cultural experience in terms of what was going on has to be more impactful.
It was. As a matter of fact, that's what got me. Even though I've always loved reading, that brought me this extra burst of excitement when I started reading books about people like me, by
Mm-hmm.
people like me. And it's like I could relate to the situations, I could relate to the stories. And it's just something about that and that it just made me feel great. And that was part of the reason, one of the big reasons why I wanted to open a store, because it was like everybody needs to read these stories.
That's
Everybody
right.
needs to be aware of what's out here for us
Mm-hmm.
and
That's right.
about us.
That's right.
So a lot of kids come in and they tell me how they don't like to read. That's because you haven't found the right book. What do you
Hmm.
like to do?
Okay.
And it's like, okay, we're going to find a book that relates to you, something you like to do, something you're into. Check this out and tell me if you like this. And then that's how I got my son to read. My son
Okay.
hated to read. He came into the
Okay.
store and he found I think a graphic novel. And he sat there and just started reading through it. And he would come in there every day and pick that same book up and read that book until it was finished. And then he
Mm-hmm.
moved on to the next books in the series. But again, he was
Wow.
able to relate to the book
Mm-hmm.
because it was about two young black boys. So it
Okay.
was something that he enjoyed.
That's wonderful. So like that's a wonderful experience. That do you get a lot of younger people that come into your bookstore, or what would you say the age range is of people that come into your store?
I mean, we get them all ages. A lot of parents, because we have such a robust children's section, we have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of parents that bring their little ones in. And when the little ones see all the books, I mean, they get so excited. And little ones, like when I say little ones, I mean like 3, 4, 5 years old. It's
Uh-huh.
like a book pulls them. They go to the book that they want, and their mom and dad cannot show them another book because no, I don't want that book. This is the one I want right
That's
here.
the one they want.
And it was so funny. For instance, once we were set up outside.
Mm-hmm.
So this little boy, he picked up this one book that he wanted, and his mom was like, "But that's about two sisters. I don't think you want that book." So she kind of took the book from him and hid him. So when they came into the store, he found the book again, another
Again.
copy of the book, and pulled it out like, "This is the book I want." So and
Okay.
I was just like, "Mom, you know what? Sometimes when they choose that book is calling. That's their book."
Mm-hmm.
But we have them from all ages, from the little bitty ones, teenagers, and of course our adults. But we get a lot of teenagers as well.
Okay. So do people come back after you have a conversation with them and you're talking to them about a book, then do they read the book and then they come back and talk to you about it?
Yeah, we have had some of those conversations. So I have had people come back and say, "Okay, that was a good choice." And then I always tell them when they get the book, go read it and come back so we can discuss because I love
Okay.
to have a book discussion. So yeah,
Okay.
we've had several people come back and discuss.
Okay. Okay. And I have encouraged some of the other bookstores to I mean, let's have some book clubs,
Mhm.
and let's choose a book and let's have a discussion. And it's a good way to learn, and it's a good
Mhm.
way to get to know other people and
Exactly.
yourself, because you're
Exactly.
always learning things about yourself. So as you're reading the book and you're having discussions with other people about the book, you're sharing your experiences, you're sharing your opinion, you're bringing your perspective to the table, along with learning from the perspective of the writer, you know,
Mhm.
and what they're writing about.
Absolutely.
Yep. So
Absolutely.
it's really a learning experience. So I know there are different types of books. So do you get? And I'm going to say this. I remember Yoel used to have a bookstore downtown, and he said to me on a couple of occasions, he says, "Well, the black women come in and they like the less serious reads." I think that's the word that he meant,
Mhm.
as opposed to get into something like miseducation of the Negro, Urugu, these kind of serious types of
Mhm.
stories. Um, and so do you have different types of books at your store, different categories of books at your store?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. We have like our social awareness, nonfiction. We have our or social justice. We have biographies, memoirs. We have the heavy reads, as Joel said, and then
Hmm.
we also have the lighter reads: fiction, romance, young adult, children books. We even have cookbooks. I'm sure I'm missing some.
Okay.
We have self-help books, just some of everything. We have a bit of everything. We have a small space, so I can't do and put in how much I would like, but we have
Hmm.
something for everyone. But one
Okay.
thing I will say about what he said, I think times are shifting now, and
Okay.
our younger generation, they seem to be more, as the kids say, awake. They're more woke, So
Okay.
we have the women coming in and they're interested in the social justice reads. They're interested in the older titles like Nile Civilization and Queen of Fu, Sacred Woman, and things like that. They're
Hmm.
looking more for the heavier reads now as well.
Okay. I'm
Mhm.
glad to hear that because, in the schools, we're not getting, a lot of this information. We're not getting exposed to that, and especially on the historical side, during the civil rights movement. It's like there's been a shift away from trying not to talk about that. You
Right.
know, but we as a people can't afford to do that.
Absolutely.
you know we have to continue to talk about our history because that helps us to understand where we are today. So those books where people are talking about different times, different time periods, and what was going on with them during different time periods will help you to understand better what's going on today. So I'm glad to hear that the young women are reading those books. And what about our young men?
Well, they're still coming in for those books as well.
Mm-hmm.
They read some lighter fare too, so it's you get a mix, but more men do like the nonfiction. But I do have some that are into the fiction as well because we have a lot of male fiction writers is out also. So
Mm-hmm.
men get to read fictional stories that are told in a male perspective, so that's something that they relate to. And so we do get those customers in also. But as
Okay.
far as the history part, as you were saying, I've always instilled in my kids that you need to know your history because if you don't know your history, you forget about your history, it's bound to repeat itself.
That's right. That's
Hmm.
right. And as I had in a conversation with the previous guest, actually last week, he's a musician, and he was talking about how, there have been groups of people or cultures of people that have, no longer exist, and so we can't afford to be naive, in that manner, and knowing knowing about who we are. Now, also had a young man who wrote an urban fiction. He kind of brought urban fiction to me. So, can you give me your synopsis of what urban fiction types of books are?
Okay. Well, I'm a huge proponent of urban fiction. Love it.
Okay.
I honestly do.
Okay.
So, urban fiction or street lit or however they want to categorize it, in my words or in my the way I look at it, it seems to me it's the hip hop of books. So basically, it's our youth telling their stories, no matter how gritty, no matter how dirty, no matter how harsh they are, but they're telling their stories and their realities.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have some people who really don't understand or like urban fiction, but I feel like it's not going anywhere. Just like they thought hip hop was going to be dead,
Mm-hmm.
this urban fiction is here to stay.
Mm-hmm. It's real. It's
It's
obviously, when
very
I'm
real.
understanding correctly, just like many of our historical books, or books that we've written about, even like The Color Purple.
Mhm.
Um, I remember the first time I saw the movie, I was sitting there, and the person I was at the movie theater looked at me and said, "Did that really happen?"
Mhm.
Were women really, really treated that way? Yeah, you know. Yes, that is. So there is truth to that. And
Mhm.
so that whole urban fiction, I think, is taking us through um, our history in this country, and culture. I would say, I'm a speech pathologist, and when I came into the system, it was in the early '80s.
Mhm.
And when I came home, when I came back to Chicago, um, Chicago was like a bomb dropped, on Bangladesh in my community. over on the west side, and the drugs had hit our community hard. People that I grew up with, and I would say I had a wonderful childhood, coming up as a kid. I had a lot of fun and lived in a very nurturing community. But a lot of my friends, even family members, had got caught up in drugs. And so now coming into the system, I'm dealing with children whose parents were on drugs. So they call these children the crack babies. And now, what all we saw, me being in the position that I was in, I was able to see a lot of the ill effects of this in terms of these children. I know a lot of kids ended up in foster homes, and I would hear stories, not being out there experiencing it, but I'm seeing the results of what's going on.
Mhm.
And so, this whole urban fiction are these generations, and I'm going to say from 80s to 90s,
Mhm.
2000s, 2010, all the way up to 2020. You're talking about almost a 40-year span there, uh, where we lived a whole different reality. There was a whole different world that these children were growing up in.
Mhm.
And I think that's what this urban fiction and this hip hop music is all about.
Exactly. And a lot of people think urban fiction glorifies violence and drug usage and things like that. But honestly, it's more of a cautionary tale. Yeah, you may be riding high if you're out here selling drugs and doing this and doing that and doing so forth, but it's only going to end up a few ways. You're not riding
Mhm.
off into the sunset with billions of dollars to live happily ever after. You're
Mhm.
going to either get somebody's going to turn against you, you're going to be arrested, or worst of all, it can end in death. And a lot
Mhm.
of those books, they bring that harsh reality to life.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I know there was also a period where, when older people died,
Mhm.
somebody was 80, 90 years old, that's who was mostly dying. And then
Right.
I began to see during this period that I was just talking about, where there were young people who expected death. They weren't afraid of dying or even felt that they wouldn't live, to be 20, 21. It wasn't
Right.
expected, because of the life that they were living. And so these urban fiction books, talk about those realities, but they put it in the music,
Right.
and our musicians have always told our story.
Mhm.
Even back in the 60s, a lot of people talked about, and sang about our harsh realities as
Mhm.
Black people.
Yep.
The blues,
Mhm.
was about harsh realities. And
Absolutely.
so I guess in one way, maybe it is serious, you know.
Mhm.
We can say, reading about Frederick Douglass and, the Miseducation Negro, ISIS Papers, a serious read, but this is serious.
Mhm.
This urban fiction is serious because it's a reality, is what children have gone through because of the drugs and
Mhm.
the lack of resources that our communities were impacted with.
Mhm. Yep, and they have stories that they want that have to be told, and they want to tell them.
Hmm. Hmm. So, in terms of authors now, what do you see coming on in terms of the horizon? Do you see a shift um, in terms of what's going on in our communities? Like, now I know we have this violence issue, that
Mm-hmm.
we're dealing with right now.
Right.
Um, and are people writing about the violence
Mm-hmm.
in our communities?
They are. And that's what we're starting to see a lot of titles that are dealing with the racial inequities in society, the issues with the police killing our youth and our people, period. Um and just the whole civil unrest
Mm-hmm.
that the community is feeling. So we're starting to see a lot of titles come out about that.
Okay.
Initially, when everything happened with George Floyd and Tiana and just the Say Her Name movement, when everything was going on and happening, we had an uptick in I guess people books about how to be an anti-racist and how not to, you know, how to realize that you're being racist and how to change that, almost like instruction manuals,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so to speak, for white people. But now I guess people are like, okay, you're not reading these books. We're tired of that. Now I'm about to talk about how angry I am about
Okay.
what's still going on, and we're tired.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm starting to see. More titles are starting to be published, dealing with social justice matters.
Now, do we have some new authors that you could mention on the horizon that you would say, are starting to write some of these books?
Um, See, I'm not good with these titles, but one or these
Okay.
authors' names right now. But one I can say right now, Kimberly Jones, she wrote a book, How We Can Win. And it started out with her just being on social media, like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And I'm just tired of seeing what's happening to our people. And as she was just steadily voicing her thoughts and putting her thoughts on her social media, it evolved into a book.
Mm-hmm.
Tamika Mallory also wrote a book. I think this was last year, but still relatively new. A State of Emergency, just basically what's going on with us right now, with our black people. So we're starting to see more social activists come out, and they're starting to write their stories
Mm-hmm.
or tell their stories.
Okay. Because I know one of the things, as you read our history and even in conversation,
Mm-hmm.
there's a talk about our lack of connectedness, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and how we're not coming together. Do you
Right.
see a change uh, in that arena as far as Black people coming together um, and understanding the importance of that?
To be honest, I feel like we still have a ways to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's we have a group of people who are ready to get together and make a change, but we still have a lot of people that just haven't made it there yet. And honestly, I'm not sure what it's gonna take to make them realize that we need to come together and we need to work together if we're gonna make an effective change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that is something that we will have to continue to work on, and we
Mhm.
have to find our way to. I guess a lot of people are just trying to survive, you know. And as you talk
Right.
about the urban fiction and people coming through that, you know,
Mhm.
maybe coming on the other side of that, or maybe still in that, you know,
Mhm.
where are they in that space?
And that's a valid point because they may not even be in that head space yet where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, let's work together and do this. They're probably
Mm-hmm.
still in this frame of mind, like, okay, I'm making it through to the other side. Let me keep striving. What can I do to make it through another day? So I I see that side, and we have to figure out how we can just get everybody to know we can do greater if we work together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, I know when I think about you say you have all kinds of people that come into your store, and you get a lot of young people that come into your store. But I think back in the 80s when I started, many of those parents would maybe be 10, 30, maybe they'd be in their 40s or 50s now. You know,
Mhm.
are you seeing that age group in any large number coming into the store and reading books and saying that they didn't know this information and now they're learning it and wanting to know more about it? Are you seeing any of that?
I am actually this weekend. One of my interns was in the store, and I had brought in some titles to that I had just got in, and the Nile Civilization was one of them. And
Mm-hmm.
she was sitting there, and she started paging through it, and she was like, "Oh my God, my father, he mentioned a few things in this book," and she was sitting there like reading it, and she was like, "There's so much information in this book that I didn't know," and she actually bought the book that day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're coming in. I had one young man, he wanted Malcolm X books, and he was like, I don't want just the autobiography of Malcolm X. Can you find me anything else on Malcolm X? So I had a few titles about Malcolm X's speeches, and then Malcolm X's work with Black Socialist Party and things like that. So I brought those titles in for him, and he picked up about 3 or 4 of those. Another one that's a big seller with the young folks, Angela Davis's autobiography.
Oh, why do you think that is?
And I think it could be because she's just a combination. She's pro black, but she's also
Mm-hmm.
a feminist. So our
Okay.
young women are really looking at that like, let me read her and let me see what she's talking about. So yeah, that one has been a big seller. And also Asada Shakur's autobiography.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Now you mentioned the feminist movement. That you a lot of young black women
They are. Our,
in
our our new young generation, our young generation, like I said, they're more woke now than as each generation progresses, we can see our women being stronger, and they're more independent. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying independent where it's like, oh, I hate all men, but it's just like
Okay.
independent, like I can do this, let me see what I can make happen, and I have rights and you're not gonna take them from me.
Okay.
So yeah, as this newer generation, I don't know, what do they call this generation now? The oh my goodness, I can't think of what they call them. My daughter is gonna kill me. The millennials.
The
The
millennials.
millennials.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. The
yeah, the
millennials.
millennial, they're coming out and they're looking for these titles, and that's what they want to read about.
So what do they think about family?
They're pro family, so
Mhm.
there's
Are
I
they are
mean,
they wanting are they wanting to get married? Is that a, a a priority or something that is significant or
I wouldn't say it's their top priority, but it is a
Mhm.
priority. They still want marriage, and they're looking, to build the family, but they're also looking about what's strong about them inside.
Okay. Okay. So there are books about that. We do have people writing books about that. Some of our newer authors writing books about relationships
Oh
and
yes.
developing families
Oh
and
yes. And I can't think of the title right now. I'll have to look it up. I just played, it's a new book that's going to be coming out next month. And it's actually talking about the black family and raising black children in today's climate. And
okay.
I can't think of the title now, but it is a new title that we'll be carrying in next month.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Because that's important, that we continue
Hmm.
to have families and we
Oh,
continue to
absolutely.
have children and raise children and then think about how we want to raise our children since we've gone through such a period of dysfunctionality, you know,
Hmm.
in our community. That is so important. Um, what
A
do
lot
you
of our
think
youth.
about?
Oh,
I'm sorry,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say a lot of the young people that come in, they do come in as couples and they are married. So I'm seeing a lot of young married couples.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So, what do you think? What is your take, since you're a bookstore owner, on coming in and purchasing, these hardcover books and reading them versus reading on the internet or reading on the computer?
Well, I'm always going to be one that's for the book, for the
Okay.
printed book. And for one, you get to touch this book. It's easy to flip through it. It's a more personal experience. And then it's easier on your eyes. Because you think about you staring at a computer all day. That's why I have these glasses on right now. If I was
Okay.
just reading my books, I would be fine. I just think it's a more personal experience for you to have that actual book in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can go in, you can tag, make your notes, and just
Sure.
flip back to a page real quick if you want to go back real quick. So I think, I'm a proponent for the book, the hard book.
Absolutely. Because there have been studies about that, that show that the retention of information is less, comprehension of information is less. And then they even mentioned that a lot of people who read online, and there's always going to be exceptions,
Hmm.
but based on the study that they did, that a lot of people didn't have a favorite book, you
Hmm.
know. And so,
Right.
like you say, you have a favorite book is something you might go back to, it's with you all
Absolutely.
the time. Like you said, you can make
Hmm.
little notes in there. Um, and I think it's good for research, you know.
Yes.
Um, mm-hmm. Because right
Hmm.
now, research is Google, you know. Ask the
Right.
question on Google and you have the answer, as opposed to when I was going to school and you were writing a paper, you had to go to the library, you had to find
Hmm.
books, you had to read through the chapters and find supporting information, and you had to differentiate the author's views from your own,
Hmm.
so you had to do that. But now everybody just goes to the internet, and this is good for your mind.
Hmm.
This is good for your brain. This is good for the synapses in your brain.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yep. And they have shown that, even as you get older, you can still grow new synapses. And so reading, I think, is so important,
Hmm.
to our comprehension, to keeping our minds strong. Just like you exercise your
Exactly.
body, you exercise in your brain.
Yeah, we live in this world now that it's like a microwave world. Everyone wants everything instantly. And often when you operate like that and you live like that, you miss out on a lot. So that's where a lot of this ebook comes from, and also the audiobooks, because audiobooks are becoming big to some people. I can't do it because if I'm listening to this book and I'm working or doing something else,
Then you're
I
not
miss
paying attention.
the whole hour, even know what happened. So it
Uh-huh.
doesn't work for me. And then I don't want to
Yeah,
hear someone else's voice reading that book because I already have in my mind how this person sounds. And I don't want
absolutely.
you to mess that up for me. So,
Absolutely. I mean, you're bringing your own voice
mhm.
into the book.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely. So within our community, I am happy to see this resurgence, as it appears, of Black bookstores. Why do you think that's happening?
Um, I feel like
Because we once had 22 Black bookstores right here in Chicago.
right. I
Yeah,
remember. And
yeah.
Desiree, who owned Afrocentric Bookstore, is still a very close friend and a mentor of mine. But I think people are starting to realize the importance of the Black bookstore in the community again.
Hmm.
The Black bookstore in the community can be a meeting place. Um, it's a
Absolutely.
place of knowledge, just the conversations that can be held in that store. Because when you think about it, who can you talk to and get a book recommendation from on Amazon?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
completely and totally impersonal. So the importance of conversations and communication, I feel like that's starting to come back and that's starting to become
Mm-hmm.
more prevalent again.
Absolutely. And that is so important, that dialogue, that
Hmm.
conversation, because a lot of, in so many ways, that was taken away. When
Hmm.
they took recess out of the schools,
Right.
that was crazy, because that's where the kids got to come together. All kinds of things happen out there, recess,
Yeah.
good and
Right.
bad. But you
Right.
learn how, you learn the boundaries, you learned, you expanded yourself, you let yourself go, and you learn how to bring you reel yourself back in.
Right.
And you learn how to talk to each other. And I
Hmm.
think that contributes to a lot of the violence that we have today. People go from A to Z. There's no in between.
Right.
You said something I didn't like, bam. You know,
Right.
uh, Learning how to
No
negotiate.
social, yeah, no socialization skills.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, like you said, it's a great meeting place. When you think about friends that you would meet, when you think about
Mhm.
um, maybe a partner that you would meet, what nicer place to meet somebody than in a bookstore, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And I'm a proponent of books as gifts, you know,
Yes.
people with these different holidays or whatever come around, a birthday, to give someone a book, um, um, something that you know about that, or something that you know about that person
Hmm.
that you could share with them.
Absolutely. Everyone knows they're getting a book from me as a gift. Even
Okay.
if they get something else, they know that
Okay.
that book is coming. And the book, like
Absolutely.
you said, is usually geared towards them, something I know they like, or an author I know they like, or just even like an activity that I know
Mm-hmm.
that it's something they're into. I try to make sure that the book is relatable to them.
Absolutely. So at the book joint, what kind of activities? Well, first of all, I know you're doing some mentoring, but just talk about some of the things that you are doing at your store, that you're making happen at your store.
Okay, so we do book events. So we have local authors come in, and we do have book events for them. So we get those planned, and we do them live and virtual. August 13th, we have a book fair coming up. So what we're going to do is we're doing a back to school book fair for the kids, and every child is going to walk out with a free book, and all
Wow.
of the other books, any additional book that a parent may want to pick them, is going to be 50% off. Um,
Okay.
our kids need to have their literary resources, and that's what we're here for. We're trying to make sure that we can provide those to them. We're also doing different collaborations with other businesses like the Hot Dog Box. They're on the north side now. We're doing a books and brownies event with them August 19th.
Okay.
And just to have something, and that's going to be on the north side, and just to have the kids come out, um, get some books, get them signed. We're going to have some authors out, children's book authors out signing books. We just want to be out in the community and let everyone know what resources that we do have available for them.
Okay. And I think having a bookstore like what you have, the other Black bookstores are encouraging writers, more
Mhm.
authors,
Mhm.
I'm sure it's very, very encouraging to them.
Yes.
Hmm. And so there's so many things that you could do there, that would be helpful to the community, because I feel like having our bookstores are very important to
Mhm.
our community. What do you think?
I think it's extremely important. You need some place to go. Books are extremely important. There's a wealth of information in books, and it's always great to have books readily available in the community.
Hmm.
And sometimes, I mean, the bookstore, you don't know what you want all the time. Sometimes you go into the bookstore, and that's where you figure out what the book is that you want. And I just think it's important to be able to have that choice.
Okay. Okay. Now I heard about the book joint on the radio, and the book, The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Yes,
I heard somebody
Sam Greenlee.
mention, I heard somebody mention the book joint, and I heard him mention the movie, and I heard him mention the book. So tell us about that.
So we had a book event this past Wednesday where Sam Greenlee's daughter took over the store for an hour.
Now, who is Sam Greenlee? Tell them who that is.
So Sam Greenlee is an author and a poet from Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very outspoken. He spoke strongly about equal rights, social justice, and so forth and so on. He wrote a book, The Spook That Sat at the Door, and it was about like a CA operative that kind of infiltrated this black organization just
Mm-hmm.
to try to figure out what they were doing, why they were doing it. And while he was doing this for the CIA, it ended up changing him and his whole thought process
Mm-hmm.
on the black social movement.
Okay.
So that's the book, and the movie was there was also a movie made off of the
Right.
book.
Right.
So Sam, and like I said, he was also a prolific poet, and his
Mm-hmm.
poetry was awesome. I
So he
actually
read some of his poetry.
back in the day, because he's passed away, but
Okay.
back in the day when we were open on 95th and Jeffrey, this was like back in '07, and we used to have an open mic night. He stopped in one night.
Okay.
So it was like seeing a legend up there just
Mm-hmm.
spitting his poetry. It was
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
Wow.
So something this book, I would recommend this book for anyone who wants to,
Absolutely.
have a vision or a view on the thought process of our people back in the '70s.
Absolutely. The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Yes.
Absolutely. So are you going to be having some open mic events at the book joint? Um,
We're in talk because right now our space is so small. It would be
sure.
hard to have it there, but we're in talks with some of the other store partners to see what we
Okay.
can do. We're thinking about having an evening where we're open outside a bit late and having some poets out and do some open mic nights.
Okay.
When we do graduate into our larger spot, that is
Okay.
definitely something that we're going to do.
Okay.
Because
Absolutely.
yes, spoken word. Actually, when we had the bookstore back in '07, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the artist No Name,
No, I'm
but
not.
she's a rap artist.
Okay.
So she used to come to the book joint, and that's where she started reading her poetry and performing at
Okay.
open mic, and now she's out here performing around the world.
Wow. That's wonderful. See,
Yep.
that's why our bookstores are so important. They are very important to our community and the opportunities that you're offering. And I know, I mean, once upon a time, our people were barred from reading.
Mm-hmm.
We're not allowed to read. And
Mm-hmm.
being able to read, was open our minds. It gave us more knowledge and understanding about what's going on. So reading is so important. And that's why we feature a bookstore on our bookstore every month, and we go to battle for our bookstores. We are big proponents here at our RGBC of our bookstores, and I was so happy to meet you and to come to your place. It's so quaint and nice. And so tell everybody where you are and how they can get in touch with you at the book joint.
Okay, so the book joint again, we're located in Bronzeville in the Boxville retail area, 330 East 51st Street. We're right under the Green Line. You can also shop with us online at www.dabookjoint.com and follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, The Book Joint, DA Book Joint. And just check us out. We're here.
That's great. And what are your hours? When are you there? Let us know when you're there.
So we're there Wednesdays through Saturdays, 11 to 5 p.m.
Wednesdays through Saturdays, 11 to 5 p.m.
Yes.
The Book Joint.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Verlean, for coming on. Again, I want to announce our book of the month, Viola Davis, Finding Me. Go to rrgbc.org and subscribe, and you may win that book.
So, and that's Verlean, a great book.
Yeah, absolutely. Autobiographies are really great.
Yes.
You know, people to reading about people's lives. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. All right, Verlean. Well, thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're busy, and but thank you for coming on. And we're looking forward to having you as our book of the month coming up, bookstore of the month coming up next.
And thank you for that so much. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
All right.